Okay, so we're gonna get a little serious here, and actually, I'm gonna pull up a Wikipedia page while it takes a second or so. But Robin Williams Wikipedia. All right, so Robin Williams chokes himself with a belt. Right, the story goes, if you believe the assistant and the wife, and he kills himself. Right, so he's dead. He kills himself. He's 63 years old. He did like 1,000 movies. He had all these financial issues. He was doing the shit just for money. And also he wasn't loved. He got two financial divorces that cost him a shit ton of fucking money. Nearly ruined him. Basically, probably killed him. Right, because he had to pay all that fucking alimony, which is all the money, and it's the way you can divorce is how you can squeeze a man's heart and genitals through his wallet. That's like some of his jokes, but that's it comes from a real spot, right? So, but he had a wife. He also had a wife at the very end. So, like, what the fuck? Isn't that if he knows all the sort of lessons that he's been telling us about, then how come he fucking why did he how come he wasn't able to succeed? I read this article about the Guardian about how sometimes calling the other person selfish is kind of selfish on your part, right? And it is in a way, but it's also selfish on their part. So it's not at all. It is to dissuade people from committing suicide. You're a selfish fucking bastard. Yes, that's fucking bullshit. You left your kids. They're without a father now. People will be like, oh yeah, you're the one with the father that killed himself, right? And that's not a good look. You want to go out like a warrior, right? Some Scarface type shit. You don't want to go out fucking being some lonely, sad, pathetic fucking figure. By yourself. What? You're just sitting by yourself and you just couldn't take the. It was just too much. The loneliness at that fucking moment was just too much. You couldn't wait 24 hours. There's like so many fucking help hotlines out there and shit that you could have talked to. They're saying about that depression is a real illness. You shouldn't say that it's selfish, as the article by the Guardian. They said that depression is it's a true illness. So that means people that have the illness, they just can't fucking shake it. They can't, for whatever fucking reason, they just cannot shake their fucking depressed funk. They just can't get out of it. And so there's that, and then also it doesn't have to be logical. It doesn't have to make any sense whatsoever. People just they just might just want to be depressed. It's just something, a state of mind they just permanently are fixated on. When he did drugs, he said he did it to escape his life and to sort of break away from where his life was going. There's some other psychological things that's actually going on with the mind. There's two articles here, both by Cracked Magazine, which is actually doing a really fucking good job at explaining all this. It first sounded like a joke, but there's actually some good lessons here. So, four shocking psychological dark sides of being funny. I think it's a Harrison or something. Christy Harrison. So Christy Harrison writes this. It says, get a bunch of professional comedians in a room, and you're probably going to be looking at a sad sack of potatoes. Or worse, a bunch of psychos. A study from the British Journal of Psychology found that comedians are more likely than others to admit to being easily distracted, antisocial, and compulsive, and have less interest in connecting with other humans. Conan O'Brien comes to mind. Jon Stewart. I mean, they do seem like they have some weird fucking sadness underneath all of it. Woody Harrelson, he's got some issues, right? That's just by their face alone. Most of us would look at these qualities and say, so comedians are kind of introverted. Psychologists look at them and say, no, they're crazy, probably because psychologists are still mad about flunking out of comedy school. Not good either way. So antisocial traits aside, think of the comedians who struggle with drugs, alcohol, and depression. There's not enough space in this article to name them all. So let's restrict our list to the Jerrys for quick examples. Louis Seinfeld and Jerry of Tom and Jerry. Slapstick comedian, perpetual goofball Jerry Lewis wrestled with depression so hard that he claimed he would have killed himself. He would have committed suicide if not for hearing the laughter of his children running down the hall while he held the gun in his mouth. So Robin Williams said he actually got cured of like his addiction, alcohol, and drugs and shit when he had the kid. So maybe he also made a joke about how reality is for those who can't cope with drugs. Uh, so in a way, that's almost saying that reality and the truth and living in the real world is actually harder to live in than, you know, in a drug-induced or some sort of, you know, biblical illusion. So, let's see, right? So, fucking, Jerry Lewis, I guess he's hello lady or something. I don't know. He sounded like an annoying fucker, but depression. He wanted to commit suicide if he didn't hear his children laughing. So Jerry Seinfeld flippantly said a version of the same thing in a New York Times interview a few years ago. And as we've covered before, Jerry the Mouse straight up entered a suicide pact with his frenemy Tom. Okay. So Jerry Seinfeld said a version of the same thing about he would have killed himself if not for the laughter of his children. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but there's a link to a New York Times article if you want to check that out. But it was there's another thing. Okay, Chris Rock, he says that comedy is the blues for people who can't sing. So people get into comedy because they're like the sad clown, right? So there's a great analysis of it, but basically it's like a four-step thing. But the essential thing is the kid hates themselves, and then they turn that hatred and self-loathing into something magical, and they say or do something where they get, you know, all the kids in the classroom to laugh, and then they realize, hey, I know how to get out of my depressed funk, and then they stick with comedy, and they stick with making people laugh. Unfortunately, that you know, that part kind of goes down because there's a duality, right? There's the clown, the comedian person that's kind of putting on a show, and then there's the real you. And then, if everybody loves the clown, then you have to like say, well, that's, you know, the secret, right? That's not the real you, or that is the real you, and you're always like, you know, fighting to get that sort of that laughter from the people. You always crave that laughter from the masses, and that's power, right? So there's also a power play when it comes to making jokes. Sometimes we can make self-deprecating jokes, but that's sort of, you know, it's saying whether or not you're intelligent enough to get the joke, and also, you know, I got to be pointing out something that's about myself that's laughable for others. So yeah, that's comedy. So Chris Rock called comedy the blues for people who can't sing. So that's you know, so that's actually kind of even more depressing, right? Comedians, they just don't have any fucking talents whatsoever. They can't sing, they can't dance, you know. So fuck it, I'm gonna just get up here, tell a bunch of fucking jokes, and then I'll be famous and powerful, and everybody will love me, right? Unfortunately, you know, actually, life is weird how it's kind of give and take. I like both. You know, I feel like I'm an introvert extrovert. I like my alone time, my aloneness, and I like being with other people. And so I think there's a sort of give and take, you know, sort of retract and give. People always talked about Sarah Silverman and Jimmy Kimmel always cracking each other up. But I bet it wouldn't just be one big laugh fest. You know, I bet there would be a lot of funny moments. But I would think that, you know, there would be time when they probably were on fire, you know, when they just woke up, or, you know, got something to eat, just showered, and they'd be on fire, ready just to, you know, here's a joke, versus like some other time. I'm just saying that, you know, there's a give and take. So sometimes you're like, hey everybody, I'm doing a song and dance, and then afterwards you go back and you sort of dig deep within your soul. That's another thing they say with comedians. In order to get to the, you know, things that make people laugh, they got to dig deep in their soul, and they got to wrestle with a lot of serious issues, and then they got to bring, you know, all that mess out, all that chaos in their soul out into some sort of format that is watchable and that other people like. So there's a lot of actually good issues that come out with this. I was sitting there saying he was selfish. That article came out. Wasn't convinced of the article. I think they are selfish, and yeah, maybe the person saying is selfish, but I appreciate people actually say that, because that isn't a fucking out. That's not a fucking way to go out, and that's bullshit. You know, if life is a struggle and it's rough out here, but when you kill yourself, you're saying that there's no hope whatsoever for your life. Robin Williams, there was fucking hope for you, so you were being very selfish in what you did, and I think it's bullshit, right? You basically give your kid, your grandchildren, and future generations, you took away Robin Williams away from them. You know, what could have been Robin Williams' next fucking thing? 63, you're an old man, you could do anything you want. You didn't even collect on Social Security, right? So you'd be getting that extra check, that extra money, and financial issues, what the fuck? Go cheap, right? Live cheaply. You don't have to, like, be like so overwhelmed and have like feel like there's no hope. And that's the biggest lesson. Yeah, you are being selfish, but I think the biggest lesson of suicide is that when people are ready to kill themselves, they're saying that there's no fucking hope. They're stuck in some situation, some mental state, or some actual prison, you know, either mental virtual prison or a real fucking prison. And when they're stuck in that state and they feel like they can't ever fucking get out and escape, they feel like there's no hope to their situation. That's when they kill themselves. And so that's, that's bullshit. Nobody should ever feel that way. So if I'm, my family, my kids, if my kids ever felt, the need to just say fuck the world, I just feel like I would be there to listen to them. And they would know that I would always be there for them. And why wouldn't I always be there for them? What kind of father would I be if they felt like I was so punished them so fucking hard, or they were stuck in some bind and done something wrong to somebody or some shit, and they just felt like they could never fucking get out of it. Where there's a will, there's a way, and there's always fucking options. There's always a fucking option. I think there's even I don't know. So Robin Williams, at an early age, you start hating yourself. This is sort of the four step to the fucking sad clown sort of epidemic. And that's true. Bill Burr was like, I'm not a psycho. Bill Burr is such a fucking psycho. A lot of these comedians are psychos, and I think you have to be in a way. It's dog eat dog, capitalistic, and also about the jokes and where it comes from. You have to be able to dig deep into your fucking soul and shit. And the whole life of a comedian, you get up there, you're just one person telling a bunch of jokes. It's not a conversation. You're not talking to anybody. You're just talking to a void, talking to a crowd. In fact, that's just it's like Marilyn Monroe in a way too, so people feel lonely even though you're in the middle of the whole world and the whole crowd. You feel lonely. Why do you feel fucking lonely? Well, that's not a real conversation. You're giving a demonstration and shit, but it's not a real give and take. And so that's what the comedians have to do, and friends of these sad clowns have to do, is they have to sort of see that balance, right? Tell your sad clown friends that they don't always have to crack you up and make you laugh in order to be your friend, because once the laughing stops, they're like, oh shit, now I'm that stupid, fat piece of shit on the playground, that awkward fat nobody that, everybody hated. Chris Farley, they pointed out like the last seconds of his life, so which was fucking sad and pathetic. But let's see, at an early age you start hating yourself. It's often because you're abused or grew up in a broken home, rejected socially. Maybe you're just weird or fat, whatever. You're not like the other kids. The other kids don't seem to like you, and usually detect that by age 5 or so. At some point, usually at a very young age, you did something that got a laugh from the room. You made a joke, fell down, farted. You realized for the first time you could get a positive reaction that way. Not genuine love or affection, mind you, just a reaction. One that is a step up from hatred and 1,000 steps up from invisibility. One you can control. You soon learn that being funny builds a perfect impenetrable wall around you, a buffer that keeps anyone from getting too close and realizing how much you suck. The more you hate yourself, the stronger you need to make the barrier, and the further you have to push the people away. In other words, the better you have to be at comedy. In your formative years, you wind up creating a second false you, a clown that can go out and represent you outside the barrier. The clown is always joking, is always on, always drawing all the attention in order to prevent anyone from poking away at the barrier and finding the real person behind it. The clown is the life of the party, the classroom joker, the guy up on the stage as different from the real you as possible. Again, the goal is to create distance. So it's kind of saying the psychology of saying sad clowns. I've heard, everybody makes a joke actually about sad clowns. And, again, the whole career, the whole idea that I'm going to fly from one city to another city and just make, a room, any fucking room, any random room, laugh. It's a really, actually, a good fucking trait to have. But for the audience and for us, and so we get the talent and we get the jokes and shit, but how good is it for them? Bill Hicks always bitched about fucking being on the road and shit. Everybody, I don't know any comedian. Jerry Seinfeld's always known about like complaining about the airline, the food and shit. So that just seems like it kind of goes with the craft in a way. In order to be successful, you have to be like sort of a pit bull, right? Just you have to rip through the competition, just they talked about Chris Farley's final days, and so Chris Farley, he was so alone, okay? So Chris Farley, fucking the Saturday Night Live famous, hilarious guy, but he was so alone that he was hiring prostitutes just to hang out with him. So he was paying prostitutes just to have some friends. I remember having an interview. He was like, man, I'd like to have a girlfriend one day, right? Poor guy never could get a girlfriend. Chris fucking Farley, rich, got money, fame. Money and fame wasn't good enough, right? He needed fucking power. But he was so alone, he was hiring prostitutes just to hang out with him. Here's an account of his last days played out. Chris Farley partied for 4 straight days. He smoked crack, snorted heroin with a call girl, then took her back to his apartment. When they argued about money, she got up to leave. He tried to follow, but collapsed on the living room floor, struggled to breathe. His final words were, "Don't leave me." She took pictures of him, stole his watch, wrote a note saying she had a lot of fun, and then left. And then he died all by himself. So, it's probably, I mean, that's a sad fucking life, right? That's a sad fucking existence. That's how Chris Farley ends. This is how Robin Williams ends. Also, you had Phil Hartman, right? His wife fucking shot him, or he got shot by his wife. So it's weird how people are stuck in these situations and you have no idea that they're stuck in them. A lot of times you see some fucking public figure melting down and you're like, man, I need to reach out to them. I need to say something to them. They're gonna fucking, do some weird, crazy shit, and then hopefully they don't. I never said I need to reach out to that person and then something happened. It didn't happen that specifically, but there have been times where I was like, damn, I wonder if they just had nobody. You hear about Marilyn Monroe just feeling completely alone, Robin Williams completely alone. How do you get a hold of these people who could feel completely alone? Me, 1 out of 300 million in America, how do I get a hold of one of these famous fucking celebrities without being like some weird fan person? And of course that would be like, that would be the only person that would care, right? And yeah, so weird. He's got adoring fans and fame, money, and nothing really, Robin. Just fucking that's it, huh? I was gonna look at some of his Wikipedia. It's getting a little lengthy. I will actually look at his Wikipedia. Robin Williams, okay, he's a comedian. Asphyxiation by hanging, marriages and children, early life and education. Let's look at his early life, okay? His father, Robert Fitzgerald Williams, is a senior executive at Ford Motor Company in charge of the Midwest region. His maternal great-great-grandfather was Mississippi Senator and Governor Anselm J. McLaurin. Williams had English, Welsh, Irish, Scottish, German, and French ancestry. He was raised in the Episcopal Church. Later authored the comedic list Top 10 Reasons to be an Episcopalian. He grew up in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. He was a student of the Detroit Country Day School. 2 half-brothers, Robert Todd Williams. Williams described himself as a quiet child whose first imitation was of his grandmother to his mother. He did not overcome his shyness until he became involved with his high school drama department. Television career, film roles, disputes with Disney, stand-up career, theater control, personal life, marriages, and children. June 4th, 1978, Robin Williams married his first wife, Valerie Velarde. Their son, Zachary Pym Zach Williams, was born April 11th, 1983. During Williams' first marriage, he was involved in an extramarital relationship with Michelle Tish Carter, cocktail waitress, whom he met in 1984. She sued him in 1986, claiming that he did not tell her he was infected with the herpes simplex virus before he embarked on a sexual relationship with her in the mid-1980s, during which she said he transmitted the virus to her. The case was settled out of court, and Williams and Velarde divorced in 1988. So he got fucking herpes. He had herpes and passed it on to his fucking mistress, or the woman he was cheating on, and then she turns around and sues him, which she deserves every bit of that money, and then he gets a divorce, and rightfully so. He cheated on her, and I don't know where he got the herpes from. Was it from her? Was it from a previous relationship? Does she have the herpes now? Does he have to pay every person he's passing the herpes out to everybody? So, and then a year right after he gets a divorce, he marries Marcia Garces, a Filipino-American and Zachary's nanny, who was several months pregnant with his child. They had 2 children, Zelda Ray Williams and Cody Allen Williams. March 2008, Garces filed for divorce from Williams, citing irreconcilable differences. There's an interview that Robin Williams said he did just shameful, disgusting acts when he was drunk and on a binge, and I think it was with her, okay, because he was with her for a long ass time, 20 years, almost 17 years, and he was just married for the first woman for 10 years. They did have a kid, right? They had 1 kid. Zachary Pym Williams, and then he has 2 other children after that. So does the herpes virus, does that carry on? Does this new wife, she she carry the herpes simplex virus, and do the kids have it now? I mean, that's weird that he keeps on fucking even though he's got this STD, and it's permanent. You know, it's permanent, and it's you transfer it, right? So they filed for divorce, right? They had 2 kids. They had Zelda in '89 and then Cody in '91. So these folks would be pretty old, 23 years old, 23 and 21 years old is how these 2 kids from Marcy's Garth, the Filipino American, and then his first kid, 83, would be about my age, 31 years old. So Williams married his third wife, right? So his third wife, graphic designer Susan Schneider, on October 23rd, 2011, in St. Helena, California. The residence was Williams' house in Seacliff, a neighborhood in San Francisco, California. Of what gives him a sense of wonder, Williams stated, "My children give me a sense of wonder just to see them develop into these extraordinary human beings." So Susan Schneider is his last wife, the last woman to have seen him alive, the night before he supposedly had killed himself. Allegedly killed himself, right? So that's, I don't know anything about this woman. Susan Schneider. Who is Susan Schneider? What is up with Susan Schneider? Susan. Big ass protest that's going to be going on. Mitch McConnell is a big fucking solidarity with Israel and Christian fucking march, and yeah. So fuck the genocide, and stand tall for Gaza. Viva la Revolution. Black Power. Trotsky. Lenin. Communism. Bad. Land reform.